Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika la wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu amma ba'd. What did you guys think it was going to be in English today? It's going to be the class? I'm trying to see if anybody's awake. Like 2 people got it. I'm just kidding. It'll be in English, inshallah. I was saying, do you think the class will be in English today? So, no worries. How's everyone? Everyone's doing good? Good, good, good. Good to see everyone. New faces, old faces, continuing faces. It's a blessed time when we are able to reconnect, you know. So glad to have everyone here. Just as a reminder from myself and everyone who might be new, we have food and drinks in the back, coffee and tea, so please help yourself. If for some reason you have to leave in the middle of the event or the class, not a problem. Just go ahead and, you know, do what you have to do. If you need to use the restroom or anything like that, it's not disrespect, but I do appreciate you guys asking. But if you need to leave, no worries at all. And AC okay? Air conditioning all right? It gets kind of warm, so I want to make sure we fire that up. All right, I think we're making some progress on the brother side. We have like 5 today. Usually we have 3 or 4, so we're getting up to compared obviously to the sister side, right? So all right, sounds good. Okay, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and get started. Announcements we'll do at the end. In case somebody is leaving, let me know. So we have a good number of these bumper stickers that we've been distributing. We have a good number of them sponsored, so they're free. If anybody's interested at the end of the class, you can just come up and I'll leave them over here. We'll take 1 per person. If there's an extra left over, if anybody wants them, you're most welcome to do so, inshallah. All right, let's continue. So we are covering, what are we covering? Yes, but the topic itself being the life of the Prophet Muhammad, right? Peace be upon him. Or referring to as the seerah, his life, his way, right? Is sunnah, obviously. But the seerah is the study of his life, which is basically the study of Islam. So if you know the seerah, meaning the life of the Prophet Muhammad, you know the history of Islam as how we know it. So if somebody asks you, hey, what's the history of Islam? A good way to answer that question is if you know the life of the Prophet Muhammad and you know how to kind of navigate through that, it'll be a very easy response for you, inshallah, okay? We're almost at the end of the life of the Prophet Muhammad. One of the exercises we'll do at the end, I'm going to show everyone how to access our YouTube page because I had some questions regarding that. I'm sure everyone's on the same page, but for those of you, if you ever want to live stream it, say you're traveling, you're not able to make it for a week or 2, it's highly recommended that you watch it and you catch up so you're not lost, right? And for those that are new to class, that you want to make sure you catch up because we do have a final coming up. Nobody got scared when I said that. CIU didn't scare you enough, cramming for like the exams and stuff. So that will be a fun. So just so I can make everybody at ease, our final is going to be a Muslim Jeopardy. So if you guys are familiar with like Jeopardy, we're going to do like a Muslim Jeopardy. So the questions are going to be based on the life of the Prophet Muhammad. I'll send out a kind of like a study guide. So all you have to do is if you study that study guide, you should be all right. And so we'll break up into teams. It'll be basically the sisters versus the brothers, most likely. But we have to like break up this like into like 5 teams or something like that. So it'll be a lot of fun though. I've done it a few times before. We had a function at my home for sisters only. So my wife, my mom, and everyone, they had a function at my house, our place, and it was sisters only, alhamdulillah. And this is in the Hawthorne communities years ago. And I think about 50, 60 new Muslim sisters came and mentors. And literally they were like, when we started this game, or they start from what I hear, they were like literally on top of one another. Like it was so much, it was very intense. They're having a good time, and so it's really nice. Just want to make sure there's no fist fighting or anything like that. So I want to have a good time. I know my jokes are corny, but when you laugh, it makes me feel good, right? So yeah, okay, alhamdulillah, sounds good. I need to incorporate some more jokes in our presentation. Okay, bismillah, let's begin. So now we finished, if you guys remember, with the review that we did for about 4 to 5 sessions. We finished at the Battle of Khandaq, the Battle of the Trench, right? We talked about the Battle of the Trench and how the Muslims, it was like a symbolic victory. Now, I think after this, the most main incident that happens after that is called the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Now, again, because this is a overview of the life of the Prophet, we're not going into all the details. There's a lot of things that happen. If we can go volumes and volumes we can talk about, but we want to make sure we just highlight the most important things, even though everything is important, right? The next thing is called the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Just by a show of hands, how many of you are familiar with this Treaty of Hudaybiyah, or you heard of it, or you maybe looked into it? Just by a show of hands. Okay, a few of you. Okay, good. So this is good that we're covering this, okay? What is the Treaty of Hudaybiyah? Okay, let's begin. We are in the 6th year of the Hijrah. 6th year of the Hijrah. When I say the Hijrah, and this might be a test question on Muslim Jeopardy, what do I mean? Somebody new, please. Even though nobody's answered a question yet, but when I say the 6th year of the Hijrah, what does that mean? No. Sure. Yeah, the Islamic calendar. Yeah. So that's good. So the Hijrah, that's actually so Hijrah, 6th year of the Hijrah means when the Muslims went from Mecca to where? Where? One more time. Medina. Yeah. So we do it 3 times, right? So when the Muslims went from Mecca to Medina because they were being persecuted in Mecca, and the reason they were being persecuted is because they believe in one God, they believe in Allah, so they were being persecuted. So thus, they had the commandment, they had the orders that now they can go from Mecca to Medina. This is where the Islamic calendar starts. So when you say, or when we say 6th year of the Hijrah, it's the 6th year when the Muslims went from Mecca to Medina. Not to confuse you, this is not when the Prophet started to get revelations. The Prophet started to get revelations 13 years before this. Okay, so I don't want to confuse anyone. Just remember, 6th year of the Hijrah just means when they went from Mecca to Medina. But remember, the Prophet was still a prophet in Mecca, right? For about 13 years. Then he went to Medina. Okay, so not to confuse anyone. So that's what we mean by the Hijrah. Okay, so we're in the 6th year of the Hijrah, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And when we say just the Prophet, we're referring to the Prophet Muhammad, obviously, right? Peace be upon him. He had a dream that he was going to be performing the Umrah. Now we know in our theology in Islam that when the prophets have dreams, they're true. So when the prophets have dreams, they're true. So when he had this dream that he was going to be performing the Umrah, the pilgrimage, so they started to get prepared. Now what is the Umrah really quick? We talked about Hajj and we talked about Umrah. Hajj is the pilgrimage that every Muslim is mandated to do if they can physically do it, and if they can financially afford it, right? Umrah is like the lesser pilgrimage, right? It's obviously not mandatory. It's something that you should try to do to the best of your ability. But when you go for pilgrimage, when you go for Hajj, you usually also do Umrah as well. Okay, and I actually had the blessing and the honor of being with Sister Taiba last year when we made Hajj. We're in the same group, and we had no idea, right? It was amazing. So just about that. So we're talking about the Umrah, the lesser pilgrimage. Okay, a few differences, not too many between Hajj and Umrah, but it's the lesser pilgrimage. So when the word gets out, about 1,400 Muslims, they joined the Prophet Muhammad, right? When you hear that we're going to do the Umrah and so forth, about 1,400 of the Muslims, they joined the Prophet Muhammad, right? And they make it very clear, especially when they're traveling to Mecca, right? So everyone, the Muslims are in Medina. They have to go to Mecca to do the Umrah, right? Because you have to go towards the Kaaba, right? They let them know that, look, we're coming in peace. We're not coming to fight. We're not coming to have a battle, even though many battles have taken place. They basically said, look, we're coming in peace, right? Just to let them know that we just want to do our pilgrimage, and that's it, right? We're not coming to fight or to have any battles or anything like that. So, or at least the Muslims, this was what the understanding was with the Muslims. The Quraysh, remember, is the tribe in Mecca, right? They're the pagans. They were completely taken by surprise. They had no idea the Muslims were going to do something like this. So what they did to kind of maybe even delay some time, or just to kind of do something to kind of scare the Muslims, they sent Khalid bin Walid. Try to remember this name, Khalid bin Walid, right? It's going to be someone who's going to come up very soon, and he's very known in Islamic history, actually. A lot of people, when you hear them, their name is Khalid, many times it's because of this individual here, the companion, right? Not at this time, though. So Khalid, with about 200 horsemen, they come and they try to scare the Muslims as the Muslims are coming. The Muslims find out that Khalid and his army of about 200 people are coming, so they evade them. They're able to get away. When they get away, they end up in this area or this plain called Hudaybiyah. This is why it's called the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. It's an area, right? Hudaybiyah. Now, when they're able to evade Khalid, they end up in this area. The Muslims, they sent a messenger to the Quraysh to let them know that, look, we want to come from Umrah. They want to come from Umrah. Now remember, we're talking about at that time, there's a lot of tribal allegiance, right? So if you were backed by a tribe, it would be easy for you. But remember, the Muslims are not part of Mecca anymore. They went where? Medina. So now, in order for them to come back into Mecca, they have to ask for some type of approval, if you will, right? Even though it's the Kaaba and something that people have access to, because it was the Muslims, they had these restrictions, right? So they would send a messenger to say, you know what, Muslims are here, we want to come for Umrah, is it okay, kind of thing, right? So negotiations went back and forth. The Muslims will send someone to the Quraysh. The Quraysh will come back and say no. They would go back and forth, and they detailed a few different incidents, right? But it wasn't going anywhere, right? Finally, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he sent Uthman. He sent Uthman to go talk to the Quraysh to say, you know what, try to do some type of a negotiation so we can go and we can have our Umrah, our lesser pilgrimage, right? Now, who was Uthman? Anybody familiar? Anybody know who Uthman was? Ibn Affan? Uthman ibn Affan. It's a very famous name. Uthman was the son-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Is that Georgina in the back? You raise her hand. I can't see. Oh, Georgina, who's Tony? I can't see you. Was that what you're gonna say, Tony? Yeah, it's okay. No problem. You know, we're all in the ballpark. Don't worry about it. Uthman ibn Affan, or Uthman, he was the son-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad, meaning he was married to the Prophet Muhammad's daughter, right? So the Prophet chose Uthman to go to the Quraysh and to talk to him for negotiations. Many different reasons, but one of them being because Uthman was someone who was known. He had status, meaning he was a noble of the society, right? He was someone that the Quraysh would respect, right? It's kind of like, you know, when you're doing some type of a negotiation and if someone is not at your, or you have no idea who the individual is, you might not give them due respect. But when someone comes of authority and says, you know what, I am the ambassador, I am this, versus a regular citizen, you might give that individual a bit more time, right? So in this case, because Uthman is someone who's known and he's a notable of the Quraysh, one of the individuals that's known, he goes and he starts to negotiate. Now, when Uthman comes, something very interesting. Uthman, when he comes into the Quraysh territory, meaning into Mecca, they greet him, they talk to him, and they say, look, if you want to pray and you want to do your Umrah, you want to do Tawaf, meaning go around the Kaaba, go ahead and do so. It's very beautiful because Uthman says, I can't. Because how can I do that and the Prophet Muhammad and the Muslims are waiting for me and they want to do that? How can I do that before the Prophet of God? You see, he had the opportunity. If he wanted to do it, the Quraysh said, you know, we know you, you're okay, we don't have issues with you, we have issues with someone else. Basically, go right ahead. He says, I can't. Because the messenger of God is right there. If anything, he should be first to do it, not me, right? And this just shows like the love. And remember, these are people that were kicked out of their homes, yeah? All their belongings were basically confiscated. Now they're back into their home. It's kind of like, you know, you smell the breeze of that city that you grew up in again. You see all the old historical sites and memories come up, especially when you see the Kaaba, right? What you call the black box, the cube. When you see that, you're like, wow, you know, and you're right there. But he says, no, I can't. I can't. This is the love that they had for the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, right? So that, I guess, indirect bribe didn't work, right? But the rumor went around that because Uthman stayed there for a few days to negotiate, right? It wasn't maybe an hour or two. Remember, they had no Ferraris or Lamborghinis at that time. So going back and forth takes some time, right? Their modes of transportation were what? Camels and donkeys, on foot, horses, etc., right? So it takes some time. So in this situation, it took a little bit of time of the negotiation, right? Then the rumor got out that they killed Uthman. Because it was taking so long, right? Previously, when the messengers went, it was quick. It was quick. But Uthman, when he went, it took a bit longer. So then the rumor went out that they killed Uthman. So then this really brought, you know, anger to the Muslims to say, you know, how can you kill, even today, right? When you have even nations at war, you don't kill the messengers. What's the term I'm looking for? The ambassadors. Thank you, friend. Yeah, ambassadors. You don't kill the ambassadors because they're there to just convey a message, right? That's just like a no-no. And especially back then, what we're talking about over 1,400 years ago, the policy was the same, that you don't kill the ambassadors, you don't kill the messengers of the king or the prophet or whatever it might be, right? You don't do that, right? It's like a no-no, right? And that was a big no-no at that time, right? But now the rumor got out that they killed the ambassador, meaning they killed Uthman, who the prophet sent specifically. So the Muslims got together, right? And so the prophet, he gathered all the Muslims, and he gathered them under a tree, and he basically said, we're going to take a pledge, a pledge that we're going to fight till the death for revenge for what they did to Uthman, who was innocent, right? So what they did was they got together under a tree, and this is something that's known as Bay'a'u Ridwan. Bay'a'u Ridwan. This is something that's noted in the Quran. If anybody wants to know, it's chapter 48, verse 18. Allah actually speaks about this in the Quran. So this is how important it is that, you know, if it's in the Quran, you can see how important this incident was, right? So the Prophet basically says we were going to fight till the end, you know, to defend Uthman, because what they did was wrong. So they take bay'ah, they took a pledge of men and women, both. They took a pledge, right? Of making sure that they were there till the end to defend Uthman, right? Now what happened was, obviously, when you look in the Quran, the verse, Allah was pleased with this. He was pleased with this pledge, right? What happened was, right after they made this bay'ah, this pledge under this tree, right? Ridwan means pleasure, the treaty of basically, or the pledge of pleasure, that Uthman came. So right when they actually made this covenant, this agreement amongst one another, Uthman ended up coming, right? So the rumor was actually false. Uthman never died, nothing happened to him, right? So the question is then, why this test? Why this pledge, right? A few different things people talk about, right? First, it was a test for the believers. It was a test for the Muslims to see, are they really going to listen to the messenger of God, Muhammad, peace be upon him, right? So it was a big test, right? And you and I have to put ourselves in that situation as well. Not in the same context, but different things. When it comes to certain things, where do we stand, right? Where do we stand? Second thing, it was a test to fight till the end. So do you really believe in the message of Islam so much so that you'll fight till the end? Meaning you will defend for something that was wrong that happened to you guys, right? And the third is, this is a very important concept and a theme you'll find throughout the life of the Prophet, that you're going to have to sacrifice at times. Nothing's going to come easy. So this revelation here, meaning the pleasure of Allah and so forth, it took some time, meaning there was a sacrifice. And the sacrifice was that they all got together to say, you know what, we will defend. We will be with you, messenger of God, to defend Islam, right? So many different lessons we can derive from. Those are a few, okay? Now things are heating up. Things are heating up because the Muslims wanted to defend, etc., right? So the Quraysh see this and they're like, you know what? Basically, Uthman, you go back. Now we need to send a senior representative to do the negotiations. Again, remember, those that went before, they weren't seniors. So they probably weren't coming with the best of negotiations, right? Now, the Quraysh, the pagans, they sent Suhail ibn Amr, another name that is going to come again, maybe in a few sessions, right? They sent Suhail ibn Amr. Now he's a senior, he's a notable of the Quraysh, he's someone who's known, right? Now, you can tell when the Prophet saw basically, or the Muslims saw Suhail coming, they knew that, you know what, now they mean business. The Quraysh mean business, they want to negotiate. You have to understand, remember there are many battles and wars that happen, right? Nobody wants war. Nobody wants killing. Nobody wants their families to be widows and orphans, right? So they're both sides want to reach some type of an agreement, so now you start to see that happening. You start to see that evolve, right? So now, they come together, Suhail ibn Amr representing the pagans, or Mecca, the Quraysh, and the Prophet Muhammad and the Muslims, right? Now they write up, or they draft up some conditions for this treaty, right? The Treaty of Hudaybiyah, that what are we going to agree to? What's this peace treaty going to be about, okay? Now, one of the first things they do is they put on the paper, on the Muslim side, they're writing it, they put on the paper, Messenger of Allah, okay? The Prophet Muhammad, Messenger of Allah, okay? Suhail ibn Amr had an issue with this. Why? The Quraysh, they had an issue with this. Why? Sorry, yes. Anna. Yes, perfect. Good job, Anna. So they didn't see him as a prophet. They're like, look, the whole reason why we're here and we're fighting is because we don't see you as a prophet of God, so you can't have this. You got to take it out. Imagine you taking out messenger of God, right? You writing that, right? So Suhail complained about this, and also when they mentioned the name of Allah, Ar-Rahman, right? They're like, who's this Rahman? We don't know this Rahman. Take it out, basically. So there are many different things that happen in this treaty. They're saying, you know, take this out. We don't believe in this. Take this out. We don't believe in this, right? And so the Prophet, they said to remove it. So the Prophet, he asked Ali. Ali was Ali was there, right? And he was the one who was asked to take this out. He was the one who was writing it, right? So the Prophet Muhammad told Ali to go ahead and take this out, right? And Ali refused. Ali refused. So the Prophet is telling Ali, look, they asked to take this part out. Just take it out. Ali says, I can't. Now, this is not disrespecting or disobeying the Prophet, but it's doing it out of love. You understand the difference? There's disobeying, but there's something when you disobey, but out of love. So Ali says, I can't do that. You know, that's his cousin, right? Also, and he's one of those, he's going to be the fourth leader of the Muslims when the Prophet Muhammad dies. The fourth caliph or a khalifa is going to be Ali, this individual, right? Companion. He says, I can't do that. I can't take out this name because you are the messenger of God. And for me to do something like that, I'm sorry, I can't do, right? So the Prophet says, basically, show me where it's at. Show me where it's at so I can take it out. Why would he say this? Why would the Prophet ask Ali, the treaty is right in front of him, right? He's asking Ali, show me where it's at so I can, just show me where it's at. Why would he say, why would the Prophet Muhammad say this? Okay, that's one thing too, but something else. What do we know? Yes. Yes, he didn't know how to read, he didn't know how to write. So he had no idea where his name was, where the messenger of God was, right? So he had to say, Ali, show me where it's at because I have no idea. He doesn't know how to read. And this is why, this is one of the beautiful things we talked about, I think, 2 sessions ago, of how such a miracle in Islam. One of the most beautiful things that the Prophet Muhammad, he didn't know how to read, he didn't know how to write. How can someone that didn't know how to read and didn't know how to write, how can he come across or come about something, the Quran, that today technology can't even figure out? Scientists and all these historians, they can't figure out. The Prophet Muhammad, when you look at some of the scientific, what they call the scientific miracles, we talked about the universe is always expanding, right? We use that example. Did the Prophet Muhammad have a telescope? No. He was a shepherd. He used to flock sheep. He used to live in the middle of a desert. How can someone who lived in the middle of the desert, had no formal education, right? He didn't know how to read, he didn't know how to write. How can somebody expound upon things that today, with advancement in technology, we're just figuring out how? The only response one can give is that he was divinely inspired, meaning God had instructed him. And this is one of the conclusions, one of the reasons why we as Muslims say we believe he is a messenger of God, because of these reasons. We can give many different reasons. This is just one reason that we can give, right? So basically, Ali showed him to the Prophet where was that, and so the Prophet, because he was illiterate, he went and he removed it himself. So what he would do is, when Ali showed him, he went and he removed it himself. Now, something very important in this situation, right? This is the pizza is probably not good, right? So, no problem. The messenger, this is the messenger of God, Muhammad, peace be upon him, right? He himself is saying take it out, and he himself takes it out, right? That shows us today that, sometimes we have to look at the bigger picture in things. Sometimes we're very nitpicking on small things and we can't do this, we can't do that. Sometimes there's some flexibility, sometimes obviously there isn't, right? But you have to do that in the control of, not in control, but in the presence of scholars that know, right? But this is a very clear example that the Prophet himself would take something like that out, because for the bigger picture, the bigger reason of peace that he's trying to bring, right? Very important point, right? So the treaty, when they've concluded and they finalized the treaty, some of the stipulation of the provisions of this treaty were as follows: that the Muslims and the Quraysh, right? The Muslims are in Medina, the Quraysh are in Makkah, right? They will have peace for 10 years. Peace for 10 years. This is amazing because, remember, they've had battles after battles after battles. Now when you say 10 years of peace, this is amazing, right? Also, the second condition or the provision is that the Muslims have to return back to Medina, and they won't be able to visit the Kaaba this year, but they can come back the next year, but they can only come for 3 days. Okay. Let's go back. So the Muslims came to do the pilgrimage. The Quraysh are basically like, look, you're not going to do it this year. Turn around, you're going to go back home, but then you can come next year and you can do it for 3 days. Right? As you can tell, a lot of this treaty it's unfair so far, right? You're starting to see this, right? But look at what happens. The third point, this is even more interesting. If any Muslim wants to leave Islam and come to Mecca, that's fine for them. So anybody who wants to leave Islam and they want from Medina or anywhere else and they want to come to Mecca, no problem. They can come open-handedly to Mecca with open arms, right? But if any Muslim living in Mecca accepts Islam and goes to Medina, then the Muslims have to send them back. So if anybody is in Mecca, which is controlled by the Quraysh, and they accept Islam or they're Muslims, and they try to go to Medina, the Muslims have to send them back. But it doesn't work the other way around, as we just saw, right? That's another provision, right? So far, very unfair, right? Now, and the final provision or the final understanding was any clan or tribe that they come in alliance with, it's going to be part of the treaty. So if the Quraysh partner with someone and the Muslims partner with someone, all these conditions fall upon them as well, right? So make sure that both parties can make alliances as well, right? Now, when the companions heard about this, they basically flipped out. They're like, this is so unjust. This is so much against the Muslims. Why would we do this? Why would we sign up to this, right? But right now, you're looking at it, and the Muslims and the companions at that time, they're looking at it as something being unfair. But you find very quickly this is actually a victory for the Muslims. One thing you can take from this, you can derive, in the 10 years of peace, right? And this treaty is going to be broken, we're going to see that. There are more people that embraced Islam in this time than did in any other time, because there was peace. You know, when you have peace, you don't have that tension. You're able to speak to people. You're able to communicate with people. There's no war on the back of your mind, like, I can't talk to this person because he's going to kill me. I can't talk to this person because something's going to happen, right? But now when you have 10 years of peace, a peace treaty, you're able to move around the lands easier, talk to people easier, right? And you find Islam actually expanding and growing at this time, right? Now, so the companions, let's go back, when they hear about these stipulations, they're shocked. And one story in particular is the story of Umar bin Khattab. Umar, remember we talked about Umar, when he embraced Islam, many people started to embrace Islam. He was a notable figure. He used to not be a Muslim, then he became Muslim, right? He ends up being, when the Prophet Muhammad dies, very shortly, we're going to talk about, he becomes the second leader or second caliph or khalifa of the Muslims. And under Umar is when Islam started to really expand. Under Umar's control, it started to expand. Umar basically walked up to, after hearing about these conditions, right? He walks up to the Prophet Muhammad and he basically says a few different things. He says, number one, that you are the prophet, right? He's asking basically the prophet, like, you're the prophet, right? The prophet says, of course I'm the prophet, I'm the messenger of God, right? He's like, we're on the haqq, right? We're on the truth, right? He's like, of course. So he's asking then, why are we being humiliated? Why are these things happening to us, right? He then goes to Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr being, remember, the individual that's the closest to the Prophet, and also he is the first caliph, the first khalifa. When the Prophet Muhammad dies, the one who takes over is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, right? Abu Bakr, then he asks Abu Bakr the same question, and he says, Abu Bakr, aren't we upon the truth, right? And isn't he the messenger of God? And Abu Bakr replies basically with, yes, he is a messenger of God, but don't question, meaning he knows things that you and I or people we don't know. He's a messenger of God. He's being divinely inspired. These things are happening for a reason. He's basically saying, Umar, he's basically checking Umar, saying, you know what, stay in your place. Don't cross limits. He's a messenger of God. There's wisdom behind this. Maybe you and I can't see it right now, but there's wisdom. That's happened to us many times as humans, right? You might see something and you see it as perceiving as being something bad, but it ends up being something good. Does that happen to you guys? No? Yes? And when there's something good, you perceive it as being something good, it becomes sometimes bad. Let's take an example. You're applying for a job, right? And you have all the qualifications, you ace the interview, you know the manager, everything, right? But you don't get the job, right? You have all the qualifications, everything worked out, but you don't get the job. You perceive that being something good, right? Like, this is a good job for me, but you didn't get it. So you're questioning. But then it could have been that job, maybe it would have taken you away from Islam. Maybe some guy would have came in or some girl would have came in, they went postal, and they just killed everyone. You could have been one of those, right? And we ask Allah to save us from things like that. I'm just giving you an example, right? Not to be too explicit, right? But there are things that you and I we might not understand. Sometimes, you're driving, and somebody cuts in front of you, and you miss the light, right? And then you're like, man, I just missed the light. I'm going to be like 5 minutes late. And what happens right in front of you? There's a car accident. And that could have been you. But it wasn't written for you, right? So you might perceive something as being good or something as being bad, and it could be the opposite, right? Yeah, exactly. Right. Right. Yeah, of course. Yeah, he came because he was around Muslims. Yeah. Very good. Good reminder, mashallah. Okay. So after this kind of like back and forth, and then Abu Bakr talks to Umar and says, basically, don't go down that route. This is the messenger of God. He knows what's happening. There's a reason behind this, right? The Prophet, peace be upon him, he goes back into his tent, and he was confused as to why the companions were listening now. So the Prophet said, look, we're going back. This is the conditions. We need to go back. They bring their sacrifice, right? They brought their animals. And so part of Umrah is, you're going to cut your hair or shorten your hair, and then you're sacrificing of the animals. The Prophet gives this order, but none of the companions are responding. None of them. Imagine that. So the Prophet's in shock. He's like, this is like the first time they're not responding to me. So he goes inside their tent, right? His tent, and he's with his wife. And basically he's talking to his wife. And he's saying, this is what happened. And I told the companions to go about and do the cutting of the hair or shortening it and sacrificing the animals. Nobody's listening. So the wife basically says, look, you have to understand, they're in shock right now, right? They're not used to something like this, right? So why don't you lead by example? Why don't you do it first? You go outside, you call the barber, and you start to cut your hair, and then they will follow. And this is what the Prophet Muhammad did exactly. He went outside, he led by example. As soon as the companions saw him, they started to do the same thing. Why is this so important? Again, we could have just went right over this, but there's something very important right here. Follow the example of the Prophet. Yeah, but something else. What else? What is so important? What is something so beautiful right here that we can learn so much from right now, especially those that are married or looking to get married. And may Allah bless you all and give you good spouses. But what's something we can learn from here? Think about it. The Prophet talks to who? So he finds comfort with who? His wife. Now you ask yourself, and I have to ask myself, when something happens that's trivial in life or something that is this the first person that you go to your spouse? You don't have to answer. I don't want to get you in trouble, but you have to think about it. And remember, this happened before as well, right? The Prophet, something else happened when he first got prophethood. What happened? What did he do? Who did he go to? Khadija, his wife, and she comforted him, right? You find this is so beautiful that the Prophet, and he's showing us during a time that maybe, machoism was big, that he's saying like, look, there's nothing like that. Nothing wrong with talking to your wife and asking for advice. And he's teaching us. This is why, brothers and sisters, you have to understand, when you come across the life of the Prophet, don't just read through and just read. Understand what's going on. These are it's almost like small snapshots, right? And we take these snapshots and we make like a video out of it, almost, if you will, right? Just to kind of understanding. The Prophet has no issues with going to his wife and talking to his wife, and the wife giving advice, and he actually takes the advice. Sometimes we have people within our communities and societies that, very narrow-minded. I don't have time to listen to you. I don't have time to listen to you. I will do what I want to do, whether it's right or wrong. Ego, arrogance, right? Sometimes in the cultures that we have, this is something that happens, unfortunately. What is the Prophet teaching us? Don't be of those people. Don't be like that, right? Talk, have shura, consult with one another. Let's see what's, one mind or two minds are better than one, right? 3 minds are better than 2. You try to get more information and more discussion going on, right? So this is actually a very important point, and something that I found very beautiful as well, right? We just talked about that. Okay, and very clearly also, so there's always room for flexibility, right? There's always room for consultation, but then there's also, when there's like verses of the Quran and from the Sunnah, then obviously those are things that are explicit. What I mean by that is, God says we have to pray, right? The 5 daily prayers, the mandatory. I don't say, no, I'd rather do 2. You don't have flexibility there. Flexibility comes in other parts, where flexibility is when you have scholars and they can discuss that, right? But those mandatory things, I want to just make sure everyone's clear. It's not that, the prayer we just prayed right now, Dhuhr, right? The second prayer, afternoon prayer. How many units? 4. I can't just say, okay, I want to do 2 units now. And let's make, you can't do that. There's no flexibility there, right? So I just want to make sure we're all clear with that, okay? Now imagine this scenario. So now the Prophet is leading by example. Now everyone gets their hair cut or shortens their hair, etc., and they sacrifice the animals. Now they're leaving, okay? They're leaving. Now the revelations come down from Allah. Now remember, the Quran was revealed over how many years? 23 years, right? So it didn't just happen at one shot. Over 23 years, there was in different stages, different phases, right? And the revelations would come, and there would be something significant about it, right? So now when the revelations are coming, right, something significant happened, which was this Treaty of Hudaybiyah, right? Now Allah is saying basically that this was a victory for the Muslims. That what happened, the treaty was a victory for the Muslims. They didn't understand it maybe at this time because they were still in the initial stages. But as this went on, you would see that, wow, this was a victory, because remember we talked about there's more peace, more people able to talk to one another, and so Islam started to expand. So they didn't see this as first, but then this was a victory, right? About them. Also during this time, we talked about 2 different names, right? The first name, and I mentioned to you, was Khalid bin Walid, Khalid bin al-Walid, okay? Khalid bin Walid, at this time, he becomes Muslim. Who was Khalid? You remember when we talked about the battle of Uhud? The first battle was the battle of Badr, right? The second battle was the battle of Uhud. U-H-U-D, if you want to spell it out, right? What happened at the battle of Uhud? Did the Muslims win or did they lose? They lost, right? And one of the reasons, obviously Allah knows best, was because Khalid, remember he had the cavalry, the horses, and he was waiting. And the Prophet told the archers to be on the hill and don't leave. But once the Muslims, initially they were winning, right? Once they started to win, all the spoils of war, the swords, the weapons, everything was there. Everybody ran towards that, right? And so those people from the hill, they came off as well, except for a few people, right? So Khalid saw this, and remember, he was not Muslim at the time, so he came around from another side, or from the side, and then this is how the Quraysh ended up actually winning, right? This is the same Khalid. right? He was a military commander for the Quraysh. He was a notable figure for the Quraysh. He was someone who was known, right? But subhanallah, he ended up becoming Muslim. He eventually started saying, you know what? Yeah, this Islam thing, it actually makes sense. This concept of one God makes sense. You have to understand, some of these people were really ignorant. They didn't understand the concept of a creator. They didn't understand the concept of one God. They were really deep into their shirk, their polytheism, their associated partners. They were, in a way, very sincere in what they were doing, right? They were obviously way off, but they were sincere in the sense that they really believed that multiple gods exist, and etc., right? So they were sincere. But eventually, with time, and with Khalid, it was years, right, after that he started to say, you know what, I want to embrace Islam. So he actually embraces Islam. He becomes a Muslim. Not only that, and many people, but these are some of the notable people. Amr ibn al-As, he also embraced Islam. Who was Amr? Does anybody remember this name? I don't think I gave it, but just seeing if anybody remembers this. Not that I expect anyone, but anybody know? Amr ibn al-As, he was the individual. You remember when the Muslims were being persecuted in Mecca, right? Before they went to Medina, where did they go? They went to another area. Abyssinia, Habasha, right? Which is known like as East Africa today. When they went there, who followed them? Remember they had the discussion in the Najashi, his courtroom? They had a discussion, right? It was the Muslims against who? The Quraysh, right? So Amr was the individual that represented the Quraysh. So now you start to put everything together, right? So you guys remember what I'm talking about? Or am I like in left field right now? Everybody with me? Okay. You remember before the Muslims, when they went to Medina, the Prophet said, you know what, for those that can afford it and those that can do it, because you're being persecuted, go to another land called Habasha. Because the king there, he's a just king. Remember, he was Christian at that time, King Najashi. Go there because he will treat you with respect and with justice. You don't have to worry about persecution or oppression. So the Muslims go there, a few Muslims go there, right? Upon going there, the Quraysh come and they basically said, send them back. These are rebels. These are people that don't follow your religion or our religion. These are people that are causing, rebellion and all kinds of issues in our community. Send them back. So basically, Najashi being just, he says, you know what? I can't just do that. I have to check with them. I have to check their side, and I have to check your side, and have a discussion, right? So the Quraysh, this is the individual who was representing the Quraysh, Amr ibn al-As. So he's notable, right? Both of these individuals, they become Muslim. Now, you probably understand where I'm going with this. What's so significant about these two people here in the context of how we're living today? What they did and why is it so important for us today? Not even the names. Why is it so important for us to know about this incident right here? Remember, we always want to make it a two-way street. Yes, Frank. Exactly. Do you guys understand that? These were two of the biggest enemies against Islam. These were people that were, Khalid was involved in a battle that many Muslims died. Amr was someone who was, part of the whole persecution of the Muslims in Mecca and trying to bring them back and all these different things. Yet Allah guided them. Allah guided them. That teaches us what? That even those Islamophobes that are outside the door here, sometimes outside of this city or in the city or nationwide or whatever it is, right? And they're attacking Islam, you never know. Today, they might be the enemy of Islam. Tomorrow, they'll be those that are leading Islam. Are you with me? Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm just talking to myself. You guys with me, right? This is a very important point. There are some people, I'm just trying to wake everyone up. There are some people, right, that are really against Islam. They're really strong on, their whole mission in life is to just suppress the message of Islam. It could be that the same person accepts Islam tomorrow, right? Some of us in this crowd, you probably once upon a time, if somebody asks you, hey, you're going to become Muslim, you'll probably be like, you must be tripping, man. Like, what do you mean become Muslim? I was with a brother, subhanAllah, his journey to Islam video will be coming out soon, and he said like, man, if you had told me I was going to be a Muslim like 15, 20 years ago, I would have been just laughing. I would have just been like, yeah, you're crazy or something like that, right? Anybody had that experience? I mean, just, okay, one person? All right. More people that, okay, you guys are being shy and humble, no problem, right? Nothing wrong with that. What I'm trying to say is that you don't know who's going to be the next Muslim. Never judge a book by its cover, and I try to reiterate that many times in this class. Anytime anybody comes to this mosque, or any mosque, or you're in an environment where there's non-Muslims, you have to carry yourself in a good way. That's just what Islamic etiquette is all about. Regardless of how they treat you, you should treat them with the utmost respect. At the same time, remember we mentioned, don't be a punching bag either. You have to draw the line sometimes, right? But you don't just, you don't just on the first try, like, you have to be patient, right? But every situation is different, case by case, right? But you don't know who's going to be the next leader of Muslims, meaning who's going to be the next Muslim. These speakers that we talk about, they're like guest speakers that come sometimes. Yusuf Estes, Yusha Evans, and Hamza Zortis. Some of these brothers and some of these sisters, they used to be those that they didn't have a good impression about Islam, right? Yusuf Estes, if you know his story, we talked about it. Anybody seen his story? His journey to Islam? Just by show of hands, how many of you? It's very interesting because he was like what you call a Bible thumper. He used to just like talk to people, and he's like, he's basically trying to convert people into Christianity. Then he came across a very simple Muslim. Very simple, right? And upon this discussion with him, with this very simple Muslim, again, he was just a very simple, right? He's like, look, I believe in Islam because I can, it's not just blind faith, right? They're evident, there are points to my conclusion of why Islam is the truth. He just started having a really good, courteous and polite conversation with him. And upon that started his journey to Islam, Yusuf Estes, right? And his father was the ordained minister, so they were very big, right? His father then becomes Muslim, he becomes Muslim. Through him, everywhere he goes, if you see him on Guidance TV, so many people are embracing Islam. And you know who gets all their reward? That humble, innocent Muslim that just talked to him. I don't know who the guy is. Maybe he didn't know too much about Islam, right? Maybe he's a very simple person, but he still did his best to educate someone upon Islam, right? Very important for us, right? So I want to make sure that we keep this in mind regarding anybody that we come across, right? They might be attacking Islam today, but they might be those that actually embrace Islam tomorrow, and they want to carry the flag of Islam, meaning they educate people in Islam. And for those of our non-Muslim guests, we pray for them, and we ask Allah to open up their hearts, and we want them to join our community, but obviously no rush. Allah bless you all, inshallah. So we are going to conclude at this time, right? I'm going to stop right there just because I don't want to go too long. We're going to stop at something called sending letters to the rulers. So the Prophet at this time, just to give you a little insight, he starts to send letters to the kings around the world, right? To invite them to Islam. And this is so beautiful because at this time, they're poor, right? They don't really have too much. And so humble people, meaning the Prophet Muhammad, is writing a letter to the emperors and the kings and their mansions and their palaces and saying, you know what, accept Islam. What do you think the response is going to be? And I'll leave you on a cliffhanger till next week, inshallah, God willing, okay? I have a short video, so if somebody can help me with the lights, if we can just get the lights, we greatly appreciate it. Not everybody at one time. I'm just kidding. I know it's so tricky, nobody likes to do it anymore, right? So. Yeah, I think it's the one in the middle. Let's just play with them, yeah. And then let's do one more, if it's okay. We get it all dark, it should be. No, not that one. There we go, nice. You're past, Noor, you're the new light guy. You're going to be the, okay, Bismillah. The light man.
Deception is a terrible thing. It can come internally, it can come externally. It comes through the mass media, it comes through the mouth of people, and sometimes even within the mind of the individual, there can be forms of deception. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Yunus, in the 16th verse, Allah tells us, and who is more unjust than he who forges a lie against Allah or denies his signs? Surely the criminals, the wrongdoers, will never be successful. This is a very strong verse. And this word mujrim, talking about ijram, is a very strong description of deceiving people, of presenting the wrong image. And what we have noticed is that when the word Islam comes to the surface, when people are from the mainstream hear the word Islam or Muslims, an image of negativity comes to their minds and their hearts. And we did a study in Toronto. We went to the different corporations. It was an anti-racist study. And this is where we were testing the psychology of people in relationship to different ethnic groups. And so there was a person who was a native, and there was a working woman, and there was a person of African descent, and I was the Muslim in this psychological test. And so they asked the people, look at the picture. And for instance, the picture would show them ice, and they answer cold. They see sugar, and they answer sweet. And then they saw Muslim or Islam. And every single person in the corporation answered violence. Some of them said holy violence. They said holy violence. And so when I began to explain to them that the word Islam, the very word itself, comes from peace, and it really means finding peace in submission to the Creator, and beginning to explain what Islam is, the people were in confusion because what was presented to them, what they took in to be reality, was something different than what we know about Islam in the Muslim world. This is a case of deception.
My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, our Prophet ﷺ predicted in many, many traditions the fact that as we come closer to the Day of Judgment, more and more problems and calamities and trials and afflictions are going to come upon us. In one beautiful hadith in Sahih Muslim, our Prophet ﷺ said that each and every prophet warned his ummah about the problems that they would face. And what I am telling you is that this ummah of mine, its blessed era is the earlier era. And as for the later eras, that's basically us. As for the later times, فَسَيُصِيبُ آخِرُهَا بَلَاءٌ وَأُمُورٌ تُنْكِرُونَهَا. The later times are going to be afflicted with trials and calamities that you will find difficult to bear. And our Prophet ﷺ said in this hadith, every time one trial comes, it will make the one before it look trivial. كُلَّمَا تَجِيءُ فِتْنَةٌ يُرَقِّقُ بَعْضُهَا بَعْضًا. Each one will make the one before it seem to be trivial. And brothers and sisters, wallahi, when you look at the events and occurrences in the last decade and a half, it appears that, wallahu musta'an, we are seeing this hadith enacted before our very eyes. Every time we thought that nothing worse can happen, another calamity, another tragedy, the rise of Islamophobia. It is truly unbelievable that the primary Republican candidate can so casually suggest that all Muslims should be ID'd, that all Muslims should now have a special registration. It is unbelievable that one of the most prominent candidates to become president can say that we should shut down every single mosque in America. Brothers and sisters, I cannot stress enough how dangerous such rhetoric is. Why? Because no law can be passed without the population somehow wanting that law to be passed. And in order for the population to want that law to be passed, it must begin by stigmatization. To simply suggest something that might be preposterous, and then it is considered to be too preposterous for now. Then it will be brought up again, then once again, and then the next thing you know, that law will become a reality. And if we, each and every one of us, the Muslim American community, and our allies who want to help us in our protection of our First Amendment values, if we do not start acting now, if we take a lazy attitude, if we consider this to be mere talk, then I worry about the next few years. The presidential candidate explicitly said, we all know that mosques are centers of radicalization. What a blatant lie. Wallahi, this is such a bold-faced lie. We all know, the people who frequent the mosques, we all know that mosques are not at all the hotbeds of radicalization. We all know that mosques are places of worship, of community, of children playing, of iftar parties. This is what the masjid is for. And yet the presumption, the perception, the notion that mosques are hotbed of radicalization. The question, dear brothers and sisters, if we are not going to correct this misunderstanding, then who will? If we're still going to be lazy, if we're going to pass the buck, somebody else is going to do it. Brothers and sisters, we have to realize, and I don't want to sound alarmist here, but already parallels are being drawn between rhetoric from the far right now and rhetoric from the Nazi party of the 1920s Germany. Already parallels are being drawn. One of the main publications of England compared Muslims to rats invading into its territory. This is exactly what the Nazis did to describe the Jews of their own lands. The notion of monitoring a specific ethnicity or race was something the Nazis did to every Jew. You had to register, you had to wear an identity badge. And for 70, 80 years, the motto, the slogan was never again, never again, never again. Guess what? We are now hearing the same rhetoric. Every Muslim should be monitored. The Republican candidate said, we will ask every Muslim to register their identity. Brothers and sisters, again, I don't want to sound alarmist here, but if we're not going to take action now, who else is going to take action? If we're not going to do something to help each other out now and get the help of the broader community, then what is going to happen in the future?
The lights for me, please, someone? Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so that was a video I came across. I'm not sure if I showed it a long time ago, but we might have played it. But it's very interesting, especially in the time that we're living in right now with the rise of Islamophobia and all this that's going on, right? So a few points that we can derive from there. One is, number one, be thankful being a Muslim. Be thankful being a Muslim. You know, when you look at the life of Jesus and Moses and Abraham, were they tested or did they live easy lives? Huh? They were tested, right? So for us, being tested, we're following in the same path. This is a good sign in the sense that those that came before us, they were tested severely. Allah mentions in the Quran that the prophets, they were tested so much that they would reach out to Allah and say, when will the victory, when will the help of Allah come? That's how much the prophets were tested. How about you and I? Secondly, that because we are Muslims, alhamdulillah, all praise and thanks is to Allah, never be shy about it. Be proud, not arrogant, but be thankful that you're someone that Allah chose. It's not something you did, not something I did, not something the mosque did. It's Allah that specifically chose you to be Muslims, be believers in Allah, the correct way. And this is amazing, right? Thus, when you have this responsibility, you need to also share this responsibility, right? To the best of your ability to educate people. And so Sheikh Dr. Yasir Qadi mentioned that if we don't do it, who's going to do it? If you don't educate and talk to people, who's going to do it, right? So that's why it's very important to do your best within your capacity, your capabilities, or what you can do. If it's that you're just talking to your neighbor, alhamdulillah. I mentioned this, a very easy way to educate people about Islam, especially if your neighbors are non-Muslim. If you're cooking food, if you like to eat, and I think we all, to an extent, like to eat, right? When you cook some food, make a little bit extra and give it a little bit to your neighbor. That's it. How hard is that? Make a little bit extra food and give it to your neighbor. Share it with your neighbors. How many times have you received food from your neighbors? Yeah. Some people, they get it, but generally you might not get it. But once you start to initiate that, you start to find that everyone else starts to open up. So you start an avenue of good deeds, right? You initiate something good, and then because they're like, oh, they gave something to us, we need to give something to them, And then you start this good tradition in your community, right? And this is beautiful because you want to make sure your neighbors know that that you being a Muslim, that if there's ever any issues, that they can come to you. I try, and please, I'm not trying to say by arrogance or anything like that, but where I live in my complex, I want to make sure that anytime anyone needs anything in my complex, they know they can, instead of going to our apartment manager, you can always come to me, even if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, right? That's the security, the comfort that our neighbors should be in when they live around us. Not that we're inconveniencing them by our parking, by like the TV being loud or whatever it might be. That's not how a Muslim acts, right? You have to make sure that whoever's around you feels comfortable. This is how, remember the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, right? When he first started to call people to Islam, how much of the Quran was revealed? Very little, remember? Maybe like a verse here, a verse there. But the people, they started to embrace Islam, right? Why did they accept Islam? Obviously by the permission of Allah, but because they knew who the Prophet was. They knew his character. They knew him as being someone that didn't lie. So if he didn't lie about anything before, why would he lie about God now? You see what I'm saying? So when you have that character amongst yourself, and then when you start to talk to people, they will say, you know what? I like to hear what this person is talking about because they're known to be someone who's good. Even if you lived a bad lifestyle or you come from a very, a lifestyle that was not the best, when you change your lifestyle, let them see the change. And when they see the change, they want to know more about this message of Islam, right? So what I'm trying to say is don't be shy, right? But try to do whatever you can within your capabilities and your capacity, inshallah. Let's open up the floor for any questions, comments, suggestions, anything on the video, anything so far that we've covered. Everybody's doing all right? Okay, since we're on the topic of da'wah, remember I mentioned we had a few people in the community that sponsored, these bumper stickers that we have. And if, it's being live streamed, so I want to make sure everybody sees this, right? But especially because everyone's in class, so as a benefit for being in class, these are free, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave them here. If you're interested, you're most welcome, because we have about, I think, around 30. I think we have about 20, 25 people or so. If you're interested, obviously it's not forced. If you're interested, you can take one. If we have extra, you can take more than one. These are bumper stickers, but you can use them as stickers. You can put them on folders, backpacks, you name it, right? Be creative. Put this on your front door, so when the Jehovah's Witness comes, they will say, I love Jesus because I'm Muslim, right? So you have some commonalities with Jesus, so it'll be a good, fruitful discussion, right? May Allah guide us all, inshallah, okay? That's the first thing. I have one of these ID cards still available if anybody's interested, right? The ones we were passing out. Very quickly, we have our bonfire coming up. Remember our new Muslim bonfire? I announced it last week, I believe, August 18th. So in a few weeks, we have that coming up. We have a little committee that's organizing everything. We have some sign-up sheets. I'm so sorry, I left it. It's here somewhere. Okay, if you guys didn't sign up last week, or you haven't signed up this past Friday, please do sign up. So it's going to be a potluck. So if you're able to bring something, that's good. If you cannot bring something, it's okay. You can still come, obviously, right? But if you're able to bring something, we would really appreciate it. Right now, we need main dishes because a lot of people are bringing everything else which we need, but now we need actually food to eat. We got the plates, we got the drinks, we got the napkins, we got the forks, we got the spoons, we got some appetizers, and may Allah bless you all, but we need some good food now, right? Some biryani or something like that. So, yeah. So if you guys are in a position to do so, that'll be great. One is here on the brother side, and I have one going around the sister side. So just fill it out if you can. Again, if you already filled it out, no worries, inshallah, okay? And yes, quick exercise because people are asking me about how to see our YouTube page. We'll probably watch ourselves right now live. Who has your smartphones with you right now? How many people have smartphones or tablets with you right now? Just by show of hands. Don't be shy. Okay. I want you all to do an exercise with me. We're going to subscribe to our page. You don't have to, but if you're in a position to do so, that'll be great. So everybody please get out your phones if you have smartphones or internet access or if you have tablets, okay? You just make sure you have to be logged into your email, okay? Go to YouTube. Just go to youtube.com. There's different ways you can do it, but we'll just do it this one way. Okay? Go to youtube.com. For those that are listening, please, you can also do this at home. In the search, just put IIOC Outreach. See the search bar at the top? If you just put is it visible? You guys can see that. IIOC Outreach. Just press enter. Okay? You see the first one that comes up, the new Muslim group? That's our page. See right next to it, it says subscribe. Just subscribe right there. Just click it, and what happens is, now every week when this goes live, you'll get an email. Just make sure your settings allow that. You have some settings there. Just make sure your settings allow you to receive these emails, right? So right when we're going live, it's going to email you that, hey, we're going to go live in like 5 hours or something like that. It sends you reminders, okay? So you see right now, it says live now because we're live, right? So if I click on this, and I click on our link, I should be able to see myself. Now, every week when this goes live, you'll get an email. Just make sure your settings allow
Okay, it's a
that.
little bit behind.
You have some settings there. Just make
But
sure
it
your
is
settings
live,
allow you to
right?
receive
It
these
just has to
feeds,
catch
right?
up,
So every,
right?
like
So
we're
this
right
is
now,
live,
we're
so
going
everyone
live.
can see it, right? That's so funny. You can just like see yourself from a camera. Okay? That's the first one, okay? The IIOC outreach is for our new Muslim class. So all these classes that we do on Sunday, this is where you're gonna get all the information, okay? So let me go back to it real quick. We're already on the page. I'm gonna click it. I'm on the page, right? Right here, you see where it says videos? See these tabs right here? You're in the home tab, there's videos. You click videos, all our videos are on there. So you see the review session 5, 4, 3, and then if you go back to the life of the Prophet, part 8, 17, 18, 19, right? Also remember our new Muslim graduation, we recorded that as well. All these videos we have. So in order for you to, for those of you if you're new and you miss a few sessions or you just want to catch up, this is where you go back and you get the videos. Everybody understand that so far? Any questions regarding that? Don't feel shy. If you have a question, let me know. That makes sense to everyone? Okay. Now that's our IIOC outreach page, meaning our Sunday class now. All these classes, this is where it's going to be found. Regarding our Friday sermon, the Jummah, and our Friday night programs that we have, that's on a different page. That is IIOC. So same thing. If you have your smartphones, IIOC TV. Just put that on the search bar. If everybody can do it, follow along with me, please. If you can, if you're at home, you can do it as well. IIOC TV. Just click enter. There it is. Now this is our IIOC TV page. Same thing. If you go here, just click on subscribe, and you should be subscribed to the page. You guys got it? Same thing, okay? When you want to go on here, you go to videos. See it says videos? And all the videos that we've done for the last few years, I guess, all that is going to be up here. So the Friday sermon, the Friday night talk that we have with Sheikh Muhammad Mana, the Friday night program that we had this past Friday, all the programs, all the events that we had, it'll be right there. Okay? So this is where you can access it. Also, let's just do Cal Islamic University real quick. Most of you are familiar with our Cal Islamic University. Same thing, go in the search. Put in Cal Islamic University. I think it should come up like that. There it is. Okay, you guys see Cal Islamic University? See this first one? You want to make sure you subscribe right there. And everything that Cal Islamic University, Sheikh Musa Omar down the road, you will get those videos as well. Okay? Everyone all right? Just make sure you cut a check for $50. Let's say, just kidding. Just joking. Yeah, that's it. I wanted to make sure we did that. And I think that's all. I want to also thank our guests that come, Mrs. Khan and her family from New Jersey. They're attending here. And also we have Brother Noor and his mother who's sitting there in the back subscribing. Very nice. I see her. So both of them, it's the first time they're joining us here today. And we're very thankful that you guys took time out to join us here today. And we pray the best for everyone. So having said that, we'll go ahead and conclude. Just make sure, please, everyone helps me out with the tables and the chairs. Some extra food left over. Also, if you guys are interested, if you want to give a gift to someone, you can do so. Give it to your neighbor who might be an Islamophobe. Be like, look, I do believe in Jesus, right? But having said that, may Allah bless you all. May Allah keep you all very happy. I will see you on Friday at Coffee with the Sheikh at 7 p.m. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت استغفر وأتوب إليك بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Also, please don't forget the bonfire. If you guys can sign up, that'll be great. The bonfire list is going on. If you're able to bring something, that'll be great.